Hello, this is Greg Holcomb with VRMA, and I'm here with Matt Kiesling, the Vice President of Short-Term Rental Policy at the Travel Technology Association, and we're going to be talking about organizing into local alliances. Thanks for coming, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
First, organizing into alliances has always been a best practice that I know the VRMA and your organization has put out there to fight onerous regulations locally. And you've worked across the country forming these alliances. So I was wondering if you could give us some first steps on what you would do to kind of put together an alliance.
Sure. So, we always advocate thinking through who are the stakeholders in your local community. And so obviously that's folks who are engaging in short-term rentals. Most of the times if you're in a community where short-term rentals are growing in popularity or growing in prevalence, then you've got, a few players in the market who are engaged in this maybe from a business perspective, a one-off perspective, but they all sort of know each other, right? Everybody knows who's doing short-term rentals in the community. And so just getting those folks around a table initially and getting them to have a conversation about the fact that, the city council or the county commission is starting to think about regulation and they need to be part of the conversation and need to be part of that discussion about what best practices look like. Getting those folks around the table just to start those initial discussions and figure out how you can take on different aspects of the organizing. We talk about building like a web hub, or we talk about recruiting other stakeholders, or how we're going to show up, how we're going to get a bunch of people to show up to city council meetings by sort of beating the bushes and getting supporters out. You can divide and conquer kind of those tasks, but it's all going to start from that initial group that you recruit at the beginning, and that you get to sort of divide up the tasks, if you will, from the outset. Obviously, leaders will sort of emerge in that. You might have somebody who knows how to build a website and get that advocacy tool going for you, or knows how to utilize social media in a good way, or talk to the press. And everybody you'll find has different skill sets, but just getting that initial group around the table is really the key to starting yourselves off and getting yourselves organized in the beginning.
Great. Can you think of any mistakes that others have made out there that should be avoided when setting up one of these groups?
Yeah, I think there's a few key ones. I mean, I think we've seen in communities where there are fractures in the group. Understand that for the most part, if you've got a city council who's bent on limiting or prohibiting short-term rentals, they're probably going to lock arms on the issue. If you've got a group of neighbors on a street that don't want short-term rentals in their neighborhood, they're going to lock arms. We've seen scenarios where you'll have a professional property manager group, or a host group, or a primary owners group. Those folks all singing from a different sheet of music often doesn't help the situation. It obviously makes your position look fractured on short-term rentals. And attacking it from that perspective often causes problems, because the council usually only has the ability to kind of engage one of those groups. And so the more folks, the bigger the tent you can build, and the more folks you can bring under that tent, and get talking about the issue in the same way and advocating for the good of short-term rentals on all of the bullet points that they can sort of agree upon, that works to your advantage and really lets you come to councils or boards of supervisors with a cohesive message about short-term rentals, their value to the community, economic impact, choices for travelers, how they stimulate the travel and tourism economy locally, all of those different things that you want to convey. You want to make sure that you're collaborating together and not sort of splitting yourselves apart in that sense.
And what kind of tools are out there that people can use or groups can use to start forming their alliance between the different entities?
Sure. So, we offer a STRAC site. It's STR Advocacy for short-term rental advocacy.org. Our site really breaks down in a step-by-step process. It would probably take you a year to go through each step that we've got laid out, but we essentially wrote a book that's about 45 to 50 pages, and you can download the whole thing as a PDF. It's free, it's available to anybody who wants it, and it starts you from the point of how do I begin thinking about organizing, and how do I think about putting my thoughts about short-term rentals and how we can arrive at good regulation together, and then how do I engage my fellow short-term renters so that we can start forming a group, all the way down to how do I talk to the press, and how do we organize ahead of city council meetings, and how do we carry that message forward, how do we follow up with city council members afterwards. Do we need to engage a professional lobbyist, and what does that look like? How do we build a website? And we've got a WordPress template in there that takes you through a step-by-step of how you can build out a website for folks to sign up and sort of act as your online hub for your group. So everything's in there, and so that's a great resource. I know VRMA is working on a resource as well. I think HomeAway is starting to put some online resources in place for folks who are HomeAway users. Airbnb has an advocacy website now. All of those are great resources. I mean, all of those are things that I think folks can use. And then obviously the social media tools. I mean, that's usually a great way. We know that increasingly legislators and even city council members are starting to get engaged on social media. And so making sure that you're seeking those folks out and repeating messages on short-term rentals and advocating for sensible short-term rental regulation through those channels is sort of key as well, I think.
Great. Well, this has been Matt Kiesling, Vice President of Short-Term Rental Policy at Travel Technology Association, and we were just talking about organizing local alliances.